If we can get started.
Hearing, the court's in session.
Okay, roll call, did everybody sign the signing sheet in the front? If you didn't sign it,
You'll get it, we'll pass it around.
okay, we'll just pass it around. If you didn't sign it, if you sign it. And you're taking minutes? Or somebody's taking minutes?
Yeah, Tricia's the
Okay, we'll call the meeting to order. First thing is approval of the agenda that was distributed, thanks to Ms. Jennifer.
So moved.
Second? Keith? All those in favor? Opposed? And I'm going to say something about the agenda. EBI asked to be on the agenda, and because we had so much with health insurance, and then we've got the finance information as well, I asked them to submit a written report to save us some time. They very kindly agreed to do that, or Jennifer asked them rather. And so we have that report that she's going to get out when we get to that part of the agenda. If you have any questions, you can call them, or we can ask them to come to our March meeting when we have less to do. Approval of minutes. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Butch, a second? 2 seconds. All those in favor? Opposed? Reports, review of contract and services. Ms. Jennifer.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Gardner. I'm the Chief Administrative Officer for the district. I think I'm kind of acting in the acting role of risk management and insurance with the great help of the amazing staff that we have there. So if you just kind of work with me and bear with me, I'm learning through. We have the Blue Cross Blue Shield. We're waiting the signature. I actually have it right here that I'll be handing over to you before you leave. Blue Cross Stop Loss Health contract is from 1/1/20 to 12/31/20. EBI, we're waiting for the signature on our 2020 contract. Hub International continues until we terminate it. Humana is signed 1/1 all the way till December 31st also. Prescription Care Management, we're awaiting that information. And Oryx Benefits, we are just waiting for review and signature from Mr. Guidry. So currently 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 contracts.
Okay.
Anybody have any questions? Thank you very much.
Sure.
Review of internal service fund financials for group self-insurance for the fiscal year ended 6/30/19.
Hello, I am Mandy Self. I'm with Colders Leaving and Company. We do the audit for the school board. Matt asked me to come and present a little bit about the internal service fund financials for the year. Basically, you're going to notice that they have changed substantially, and that's because the governmental accounting standards have changed over the last few years, and they've been gradually going towards putting your other post-employment benefit liability onto the books. So now, and this is the first year, we restated last year to kind of have some kind of comparison. We had to put your OPEB liability on the books, which is basically for everybody that's currently working and the retirees. You have how much is it going to cost you to provide them with insurance the whole time. So if somebody's working here and they've only worked here a year, it's doing a calculation to say, okay, if we assume this person is going to retire with us, how much is it going to cost us to insure them for the whole time that they're retired? Divide that over the years we think they'll work and say, this is how much you have to expense every year while this person is working, so that you can cover everything that you're going to pay out for them over their life.
Yeah, but they're not staying as long either.
Yeah.
You know, if you come in here, it was 30 years, now it's 20, it might be 20.
And according to the way it's supposed to work, and again, that's a calculation that an actuary does, we just report the amounts, but we don't actually come up with your liability should be 400 million, 500 million, 200. The way their calculation is supposed to work, they're supposed to take historical trends here, like, okay, of the 10 people who begin working this year that have 1 year of experience, what percent of those will ever make it to a retirement age? So if they say, okay, it's only 1%, then they assume that only 1% of every person that starts here is going to need to have that liability on the books. So that's supposed to be in their calculations, and that's one of the numbers that we'll kind of point out. There's 2 new categories on the balance sheet.
Before we leave OPEB, because we have some new members on our committee who weren't on last year, do you understand what OPEB is? I'll let Matt it's a trust that's set aside you've heard of unfunded liability at the state level. So it's unfunded liability at our local level for health insurance. The board, as I appreciate it, correct me if I'm wrong, Matt, will send money to the state, I think it's near $20 million, for retirement, for the salary issues.
So there's separate, there's your
Right.
retirement and there's your health insurance.
Right,
It's,
and
it's
OPEB
similar. It's a similar situation in that from 1930s when they established the retirement system, they didn't put any money towards it, and it was a pay-as-you-go system. And in the 80s, they decided, or the financial people of the world decided they're going to have to start actually putting money aside so that guarantee of benefit is actually there for you when you retire. So in the 1980s, you might have noticed, if you go back in history, for people that the retirement rate has spiked up. So now, you put in 8%, the school board now puts in 26%. So to not only pay for your retirement, but to pay for the retirement for everybody who's retired before you, or as regards to unfunded liability. We expect that to probably reverse in the year 2030 or something in that neighborhood, where that liability will actually be funded and this rate will drop back to where it should be, more like 5 or 6% on the retirement side.
And that's my concern, Matt. We have in the past taken employee premium insurance money and put it into OPEB, correct?
Yes,
And
Partially.
there has been, correct.
yes.
Yeah.
In general,
Exactly.
And general
And-
fund, yes.
And
I understand the need for OPEB. I think it's a good idea. I understand why you, from a financial standpoint, need to know what your liability is going to be. The problem I have is the way we paid for it. I think it's fundamentally wrong to ask current employees and/or retirees to pay into a program that will benefit Lafayette Parish in 20 years, but will never benefit them. And I think there are not that many school districts that are even participating in OPEB because they can't afford it. But for Lafayette Parish to ask employees to take their insurance premium money to do it, I just think it's fundamentally wrong and improper. I know the general fund can't afford lots of money, but my thinking is if we're going to fall off in 2030 with the 20 million they're sending to the state, that's the difference between the 6,700 per teacher and the 4,800 per teacher, right?
I'm not sure.
But that's for pension,
That's
not for
pension.
OPEB.
It's not health insurance, I understand that. But if you no longer have to pay that to the state in 2030, that can then be used to pay your health insurance, OPEB, correct? Or part of it could.
And the board can do that,
Right.
yeah, if they have that fund,
Okay,
that they
but
want
let
to
me-
use it for that.
Let me ask you this, though. Like for instance, in 2030, by then, because they're what, they're out of this almost 60, almost 70 system, there are about 4 that pay, am I correct? So like, not too much more than that.
So
So
separate the
so in
pension
2030
from
though,
the
are you taking, like,
insurance.
when it gets to that, is it just Lafayette, or like, at that point, the money goes to the state and, it's all?
So the insurance, I'm just using it as an example between the two. They're not related, and
I
there's no money.
understand.
There's no money in between them.
I understand.
The amount that's going to the pension is strictly for your retirement.
Correct.
The insurance is the same situation, but it's more of a local thing. We control local insurance. The state controls retirement.
Correct.
So
But if in
basically,
20,
it's the same premise, but we're starting to put money aside because there's a guarantee of a benefit in which there's no money there to fund that benefit. for
I understand that. But if in 2030, the amount of money that you're having to send to the state, I think the assumption is that in 2030, you won't have to be, that problem will be resolved. And so you will have a cost savings that could then be put, the general fund now doesn't have the money, that could then be put into OPEB for health insurance, or part of it could if the board chose to do that.
If the
Rather
board
than
chose
you,
to do that, the fund is set up to be able to do that. At any point, the board decides to put money.
Have y'all done a survey to see how the parishes in Louisiana, how many are putting into OPEB and how many are not? Like 4.
there are only 4.
There
There's
are
only
4 that
one
have
put in.
established it. We've gotten calls from about 3 or 4 more now that this is starting to happen.
Right.
It's becoming a lot more common, and
Okay.
we're 10 years ahead of that. So you know, when we're ahead of the game on that, and that we have a fund established, and that does make a big difference financially from us in both responsibility. We have about $14 million in that fund right now, and it's growing and invested every year, so that the money is there to provide at least a couple of years of insurance. If this would shut down, that would at least guarantee health insurance for retirees for a couple of years until we ran out of that money.
That 14 million had a one-time $10 million payment, didn't it?
Yeah.
And did that come from the insurance premium money?
No.
Where did it come
We have a history of that, but it wasn't a one-time payment. It was ratcheted up over a time period.
from? How much of that was from employee insurance money, if you recall?
I have it, I don't have it with me.
We did last year, what, 400,000?
400,000.
And that's what we're gonna do, you're
The
proposing
general
to do
fund
again
did
next?
500,000.
What?
The general fund did 500,000.
The insurance did
The
400,000.
insurance did 400,000.
So we're doing 900,000 a year.
This is, wait, can I just say my concern? 'Cause
Yeah, Carol?
This is the concern. When you take that $400,000 out, then employees and retirees, you can expect us to have a premium increase or a benefit increase because you've taken that money out. So at what point can we say you put into OPEB, but don't have us suffer from an increase in premium or benefits?
But it's part of the budget right now, so you have to, the money has to come from somewhere to fund this benefit.
But have we-
General
But
fund-
does it have to come
It
from?
does not have to come from
No,
employees.
it doesn't have to come. That's my point. It doesn't have to.
There isn't a parish but us in the state that's using employee insurance premium money for OPEB, is there?
I'm not sure how the other parishes fund.
I'm
it.
not
Well,
sure.
one funded it totally with
But a lot of
Oil
them
and
have
gas
also
money.
made changes to lower the liability.
I
So they
understand
have
that.
started making benefit changes. So once they reported their liability and saw, well, there's no way we can fund whatever that
Right.
number is, they started to make changes to benefits or changes to premiums or a combination to be able to raise the money to be able to do
I
it.
understand that.
It doesn't have to all come from one or the other, it's just
So
a
how many
combination.
districts are actually
Yeah.
contributing to OPEB?
Yeah,
As of a
Four.
few years ago, 4?
Only a few put it into a trust, but they're still, just because they're not setting it aside into a trust, what the benefit of doing that is that once the board says, hey, I'm giving this 500,000 over to OPEB, they can never do anything else with that. If they just keep
Absolutely.
it in cash and just are trying to fund it by just keeping it inside an insurance fund or a general fund, if a board comes in the next year and decides they want to spend it, they can do that. By putting it aside, it assures that that's what it has to be used for. They
Right.
can't take it out for any other reason except to pay insurance.
And they said that
So-
about Social Security too.
We understand that.
The idea is to protect the money, not, if you
And
just
we
keep
need
it in
budget
cash, they can
proposals.
spend it on anything they want without having to discuss it.
Which would
after.
not be a
We
wise
understand.
thing to do financially.
Right, it
Again-
wouldn't be a wise thing, but they would have that power to do so if they wanted to, without
Okay.
it being in a trust.
Has to exist because of what hasn't been done in the past. I understand that. What I am questioning is why employee health insurance premiums are being used to fund it.
Yes,
Because you're asking people who will never benefit.
yes.
And that's why I'm,
The current employees should benefit. If I'm paying this year and they
she's
add,
retiring in 3 weeks.
well, I understand, but like somebody who just starts today that is paying out of that fund, that's why they're paying the extra, because they're planning to have that benefit when they
So
retire.
why not grandfather the rest of us
You
in?
know.
Right, why not?
I mean, so if you're talking about a first-year teacher who will be here 20 years from now, let's say a percentage of our first-year teachers are still going to be here, hopefully, and they might benefit. I'm looking at the system. The system will benefit in 20 years if it's funded. But if we're looking at the amount of money we're paying for the salaries that we're paying to the state, that we will no longer have to pay in 2030, that's general fund money, correct? That general fund money that was going to salaries to make up for the state unfunded liability could be put into OPEB for the unfunded liability of healthcare, and then you wouldn't have to take anything from employee health insurance premium. I mean, my thinking is employees get taken out of their check, money every month or whenever they get the check, retirees the same way, for their health insurance.
Right.
It should go to health insurance. And it's not. $400,000 of it is going into OPEB.
And then maybe you should ask us and let us vote and see where we would want that money put. I bet they will say, not if it costs me an increase in premium or an increase in benefits. They'll tell you no.
A few years ago, several of us visited several districts in the state because the proposal was to increase our deductible to $3,300, which would have been the highest in the state. So we started doing research, and not necessarily this committee, we were not on the committee at the time, we were sitting in the audience, but found that it would have been the highest in the state. So we decided to go out and visit districts. We had retirees visit several districts. We put a binder together like this. I visited St. Tammany, Ascension, that's where we found out about Lynn.
That's where we
That's where we found Lynn. They were so pleased with him. And Livingston. St. Tammany did not contribute to OPEB. You know, and you say, well, you know, I just checked. Their deductible's $500, ours is $950. Their premiums for actives are $97. Ours is what, $149. So, I mean, and she said, we do contribute, but that's coming from general fund, which I think is a general fund responsibility. I'm not sure it's fair to put it on employees that are retired or, you know,
Or
Even
are
active,
active at
even
this
active.
point in time for health.
And that's fine as long as the general fund will be able to support it.
I understand that, but what about
At the
us? So
moment,
what about,
so I
we're
understand, I'm
increasing
just saying that
premiums.
they have to be able to pay it or else
I agree.
then there's no money to give to, no matter if they want to fund it or not.
Absolutely.
If in a year suddenly the amount they have to pay for retirees plus what they have to pay for active, they can't fund.
So the answer is let's just keep increasing
If we
premiums.
have
so
that
can
money
put
set
into
aside,
OPEB.
they could
Yes,
go to that
to
for
go to
a rainy
OPEB.
day.
Yeah, we're
That's not
increasing
fair.
premiums to
We're
go
not
to
increasing
OPEB.
premium. The amount that it goes to OPEB has been the same. The liability is about $7 million. And one thing that St. Tammany has done, St. Tammany, when you turn 65, does require everybody to go in the supplement plan, this Humana supplement, which significantly reduces their OPEB liability.
Is that still true, Will?
Yeah. it is.
Yeah, and
Most
not
of them
only
are doing that.
them, but a
Most of
couple
them are.
other, most of the other districts are Ascension's also doing that. They're requiring that when you hit 65, you go in the supplement plan, which basically limits the OPEB liability to the system, which significantly reduces this number.
Which, yeah, that would
So
make
part of
sense.
that, they don't really
Question
have
is-
to put as much. If we're putting 400 from this and 500, we're putting $900,000, it's really 7 million, so that when we get to 2030 or whenever this happens, you can actually fully fund it. By now, it gets us along, and it gets us to the point where we're constantly putting money in, it's growing, and as the interest grows, it grows the fund also.
Since the
understand.
benefit for that is 20 years from now, whenever
You have to be it.
the majority of employees paying this won't be here.
No.
But
Has,
as we age out, it will affect those people. I mean,
Has the board
you know,
been-
I'm on the closer retirement, I'm more like her, you know, closer retirement, but I think for, you know, my godchild who just started teaching, or anybody else who's just starting teaching, this will benefit them, and it will provide a guaranteed benefit for those people.
Has-
It's in the bank that's required rather than just a.
again, I have no problem with OPEB. My problem is the way we're funding OPEB through employee premium, health insurance premiums. My question is then, has the board been asked for that $400,000? Has that been put, is there $400,000 in the general fund that can pay, or $200,000? Because your only penalty is what? A potential bond rating decrease, which isn't going to happen. I mean, you sold all 40-year bonds, for goodness sake, or a credit rating
Our
problem.
bond increase, we're the highest bond rating in the state right now. It's
Right.
got increased.
So that's not going to be a significant issue. And those are the penalties. So let's say you put
When we speak
$200,000,
to Wall Street, it is a significant issue.
let's say you put
We asked
$200,000,
directly that question, and our response is that we are putting money in OPEB, and that over time, we're going to increase that.
but the money you put in, instead of putting a total of $900,000 in, you could put a total of
500, the board share.
$700,000 from the general fund, let's say, and leave employee health insurance premiums alone,
But that's a board
and you do
decision.
that until 20, huh?
That's a board decision.
But my question is, have they been asked? Has it been put into the budget for the OPEB contribution to be a board contribution rather than employee health premium contribution? Has that ever been put into a budget in the general fund?
The $500,000.
No, the total.
Total no.
And
How much have we put in from insurance?
A lot.
400.
No, I know a year. I'm talking
A
about-
year total.
I was on
Over
cabinet
time?
when we
Yes.
were told we had to do it,
Yes.
which was not true, it was
Yes.
misleading. But over the years, how much have we taken from insurance to put in OPEB?
because our fund balance, Lynn, now is what, 10 million?
That's a fund balance, that's not OPEB.
And some of that's just investment
I know
earnings
that.
and stuff like that. There is that much in there, but that's the other benefit to putting it aside, is that it earns interest so that your contribution doesn't have to be that
I
much. Not all
understand
the money came
I
from.
understand.
But we have $14 million in OPEB that nobody can touch. The board can't touch it. Our insurance has gone up. We made a small increase in July. We've been very fortunate, thanks to Lynn's efforts. So the question, I think, is an excellent one. How much total has come from employees to go into a trust?
I don't have over all the years, because they've been going
Can you
on
give
for.
that to us?
Yeah.
I'd like to know.
I think one year, wasn't it 2 million?
It was a lot.
Not
Because
from the.
Not from the employee. They have funded it that much, but it wasn't all from the
Okay.
insurance. Some of it's been from general fund.
I don't know of any other district that uses insurance money to pay into OPEB.
It
As we visited the state, and we did not visit every single district, it was impossible, we only had 2 weeks, but I think we hit close to 40 districts in the state.
More districts, instead of funding, are cutting benefits, are like doing the thing like forcing people to go to Medicare, or they're saying after 65 you have no insurance, we only cover you up until 65. So there are more districts are doing, our governments, it's not just school districts,
Sure.
are doing plan changes to lower this amount rather than go up on premiums and or fund it through their general funds.
So let me ask you
There are
this,
more
Lynn.
check plans that are doing that. That's not what you have to do, but that's
understand.
just an option.
Lynn, in St. Tammany and Ascension, they have some employees that were not eligible for Medicare because they started and,
484,
exactly. What do they do with those employees? They remain as
They can't do anything with those retirees other than leave them
in the plan, right?
See, that's what we have that
There's no place for
situation.
them to go because
Exactly.
there's nothing for Medicare
Okay.
and primary.
That's what I
The
thought. So
biggest
it's-
savings is gonna be for the current though, from that liability, because it's gonna know that if you have your first or 5-year employee that you're estimating a few of those are gonna stay and retire, then it's gonna say, but we know that our health cost from our plan is only gonna be 30 million instead of 75 million, because we know that they're gonna have Medicare. So it's the bigger part of the savings on the liability is gonna be from the estimate of what you're gonna owe for everybody who's working right now.
I understand
So
that.
that will help.
But I also think if you took the 500,000 that the board has paid last year, and you asked them for 200,000 more, so you contribute 700,000 next year to OPEB, and all of it from the general fund, then you leave employee insurance premiums where they belong with employee health insurance, which builds up our health insurance fund. I'm just asking if that could be considered when you all, I don't know when you start your budget process, but if that could be considered to be offered into the budget.
That's an administration board question. I don't know why you're asking me, but,
Well, they don't prepare the, I'm just asking, when you prepare the budget, could that be offered to the board as an option?
I mean, yeah, anything can be offered to the board is an option. It's just, what the board, what the plate for the board is.
I don't think there'd be that much difference if we dropped our contribution from 900,000 to 700,000. I don't think that's going to raise any red flags. Your bond rating is great. You've sold 40-year bonds. I don't know anybody else who's sold 40-year bonds, frankly. So your finances are in good shape, clearly. And so I don't think that decrease of $200,000 would make a difference. And I think in the size of your budget, it's not hard for the general fund to find $200,000.
And 40-year bonds were sold through the USDA,
USDA.
and they gave us 2.3% interest. So that's why
Amazing.
we went as far as they would let us at that rate. We take that all day. So that's the only 40-year bonds that I think,
Yeah, but that's amazing. I mean, it really is incredible.
Public
Public bodies don't sell 40-year bonds.
in the calls to Wall Street that we have when we go to issue debt, every year we have to go and defend ourselves, is that we're putting money to OPEB and that we're increasing it. If we show that we decreased it, then that tells them that we're not doing them what we told them our plan was to do to try to address this OPEB. Because they look at us as differently because we have an OPEB trust and we have money in the OPEB trust, as opposed to all the people who may have money aside, as Mandy said, but is not in a trust, is not protected. So they don't see that as valid. So that's something that we've done to just try to keep that going, and we've saved millions of dollars of interest.
Well, we've already
on our
decreased it
side
before.
by our high
Yeah,
bond
we sure
rating.
have.
And one of the reasons for this higher bond rating, and I can tell you, is because we are unique in this OPEB trust, and I think now that these new GASB statements have come out, it's going to be more and more of an issue. And you know, I said 10 years ago this was coming, and it's here. You know, I predicted this. I could see it on there. I could see it in the questions they were asking. This was a big thing for the people that issue debt and that buy bonds. That this OPEB thing is a big thing.
Well, but we've already decreased the amount we put in OPEB before, and it didn't raise an issue.
No, we've been pretty stable. We've been pretty
No,
stable.
the year we put so many, it was several $1 million that went into OPEB.
Just to
Right.
start it, but
Just
after
to
that,
In the beginning.
then they just maintain.
We just maintained it. It was initial deposit from money that we had that we put in, and then it was just maintained. And the thing is, we're trying to address that, and, you know, maybe we use the 2030 thing, but we need to get to 2030 or to whenever this thing goes out.
Yeah, but to get, as a placeholder to get to 2030, we could use a 1-year reduction to 700,000. Take the board's current 500, add 200 from the general fund, and do 700,000 from now for 10 years, and then you've got $20 million you're gonna be able to put into it.
But we probably need to stay at least where we were, no matter how we fund it. We get, at least probably need to stay at 9, if not a little bit more.
But if your revenue base went down, how would you come up with that if you didn't have that money? You wouldn't be able to put in it. You wouldn't be able to put anything in. If your revenue source was drastically reduced, what would you
Right,
do
but we'd
then?
also have to look at our bond rating and the interest we pay on our debt. We have $100 million of debt. So yes, we have to have a bond rating. And when we look at issuing 40-year bonds, and when we go to USDA and we have this bond rating, and they come back with us with this incredible interest rate, you know, and that we saved what, $13 million on the last interest when we built Southside High, you know, that makes a big difference.
I know I don't have the money the board has, but I was talking to my advisor today, and I lost money. There's a possibility you will lose your revenue, whatever it is. One day you'll have less money. You have less money, you have to put less into this fund.
Well,
So
the
that's
other
the
thing is,
point.
the other problem, just what you're saying, if the revenue stream of the board 5 years from now, 10 years from now suddenly decreases a lot, they might not be paying insurance at all, because if they don't have any
that
money
could be
aside
true.
to fall back on,
That could be true, and all of this could be phenomenal.
yeah, and so you don't know, it is just an estimate, but the reason they want you to have the money set aside in a trust is so that if that time comes when the board doesn't have the money to offer the benefits that they promised you, that's their fallback to at least do something. They might not be able to, obviously if it's 400 million, you only have 14, you're only offering a little bit of benefit at that point, but hopefully
I understand.
you
But
have a little
understand-
bit, it's a fallback.
Yeah, but you understand what we're saying? We agree to that, but why do you have to take it from our employee and retirees' money that we put in? There should be another alternate for you to obtain the money so you can put it in.
And
If they
if
have
you
it
are
in the general fund,
currently, if
they
you're
can.
currently sending about $20 million to the state of Louisiana for salaries, that you will no longer have to send in 10 years. So you're living with a $20 million expense to the state that in 2030 you won't have anymore. So what you need to do is buy time between now and 2030, and then you have that money that has been going to salary unfunded liability that can then be put into health care unfunded
And they
liability.
can, you just have to rely that whatever
state's
the
not gonna
board
cut our
is,
NFP.
that they're not gonna cut funding, or
You
you will
can't
have, or the board's
predict-
gonna be okay with using the whole 20 million for that.
I can't predict what any board would do about anything.
No, you can't.
But I think that we have just taken employee insurance premium money that employees believe is going to pay their insurance cost, that is being put into a trust. The vast majority of our employees don't know about it. If we've got 14 million now and we need to have 400 million, we all know we're never gonna get there, at least in my lifetime. And we know in 10 years, we're going to have a large sum of money that's currently going to a salary unfunded liability that can come back if the board votes to do that. Then we need to basically hold the place for 10 years and continue to say we're funding OPEB, which we are. $200,000 less than a prior year is, I just don't think it's going to make that big a difference to the bond rating agencies. I just don't.
Another thing that we found when we went around the state is that in most districts, insurance employees are paid out of general fund. That is not true here.
No.
Even the self-funded ones, because they consider it a general fund responsibility. But it's my understanding the director was paid half from general fund and half from insurance. The rest of the employees are insurance paid.
Right.
When they must be dealing with risk management too. So that could be that's still premium money going towards salaries that other districts are taking out of general fund. And that was kind of shock to us when we went around. Because we asked several questions, we reported it back to this committee. But that's another thing coming out of premiums that other districts are not having to pay.
Would it be fair, Matt, for you to make a presentation, say, to the board insurance committee at some point in time? Or have that committee meet with our committee so we can discuss? We all know that OPEB is necessary, and we all understand the accounting that's required, and you have to show it. I get all that. The question is, how is it going to be paid? And if somebody is having money taken out of their check every month for their health insurance, that's where they think it's going. They don't think it's going to a trust that may or may not benefit them. They don't think it's going to salaries of school board employees. So I think we need to find a way to get back to a situation that employee health insurance premiums are going to employee health insurance.
What's the average the employee pays towards that?
The 400,000,
Well,
is that, or like the OPEB, like when we looked at the OPEB and it was maybe 2 years ago, so we took the number of participants and said how much was it per participant to do the 400,000, it was a few dollars per.
a few dollars per employee.
Is that a monthly or yearly, or is that
Yearly.
yearly? A few dollars?
$5,
And
$6.
we're arguing for this? A few dollars.
Because when you take the 400,000 and you divide that, 70% of that money that goes into the insurance fund comes from the general fund already. So only 30% of the 400,000 is actually getting paid out of anything that employees are funding.
So what's the monthly?
Yeah, don't say dollars.
30, 40 cents.
Really?
No.
Hannah, you had a
I
question?
had a question. I just
Not just the 400,000, because it's only 30% of the 400,000. 400,000 is what the insurance sends, but 70% is covered by the general fund.
So I would just wanted you to clarify this thing, that we are the only parish that is taking that premium insurance money?
There are only 4 parishes that I know of that are dealing with an OPEB trust.
Okay.
Other parishes are making changes to their plans as a way of dealing with this. Of the 4 that are putting money into an OPEB trust, maybe Lynn can answer, but I don't know of any who are using employee insurance premium money of those 4. I could be wrong. One of them I know paid almost the whole thing with shale money.
Just so.
I mean, just
Right,
so
somebody had
they
to.
pay their entire unfunded liability. I mean,
Out of the general budget?
yeah, because they got this
Shell.
They got a
windfall
windfall.
of shale money, and that's where they wisely put all the money into that. So that leaves 3 other parishes. I don't know. Maybe Matt could call and see if how
Well,
they're funding.
I just want to be clear, I mean, I would love to, see what they were suggesting, to see how it would affect our budget overall if we could fund some of it like they're, highlighting. It would be worth looking at, especially if it would attract and retain teachers. in the big picture of things. That's just my opinion.
I like the idea of bringing it to the board, you know. We could beat the dead horse here all day long. You know, we're going round and round. We would need to get with the board and discuss it. You guys would have your figures, et cetera, and we can invite the board members, you know, and just kind of discuss it with them, because the fiduciary responsibility is in their pocket, man. It's their baby, okay?
Probably
Wanna put that in
with the
form of
insurance,
motion?
board insurance.
Yeah, why
committee
don't
first.
you make a
And then
motion to meet with the
Right,
board?
I'm the only person from our committee right now tonight, and y'all know I'm brand new.
We appreciate
Figure this out.
That's okay, we'll carry you along.
Okay.
The Buddha's in the office in the
I'm scared
back.
to even ask a question.
So put that in form of motion.
Okay,
Thank you, Clyde.
I'll just put it in the form of a motion that we get together with the board to discuss OPEB and how it's paid, and perhaps finding alternate ways of producing the monies needed.
Board Insurance Committee.
The board insurance committee, yeah, I'm sorry.
And Carol is a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, the next thing on the agenda is the EPI open enrollment.
I know we got diverted by OPEB, but there are the
Oh,
financials we have to
I'm
talk about.
sorry. I apologize. It's right in front of me, too.
So, coming from the financials, so we actually, and I've been, for transparency purposes, I've been trying to push to find a way to have an audited internal service financial statements for this fund. You know, historically, we had to put it in the general fund when GASB changed it, because it was a whole bunch of, we're going to the technicalities of it, but we had to put it in the general fund. We used to have a separate statement in the CAFR that was audited, that showed everything, and that was great. And then we had to start doing what we call the management statement, which was not really audited, but it was pulled out separately. We now have a separate statement in the CAFR, in the financial statements, that is audited, that shows the activity of the internal service fund, the self-funded insurance. Now, unfortunately, that does have to include the OPEB because it is now required, but I did ask Mandy to separate that out so we could kind of see a little bit more what actually happened. When Lynn gives us news, Lynn is reporting to us on a calendar year basis, January to December. Our financials are July to June. So what we see here is the actual activity that happened. So if you look at the income statement, the second one, you can see our total operating income was a negative 1.2, or about $1.3 million. And then we made interest of about $289,000. So you kind of can do a little math yourself. And I kind of pushed her to put some numbers. She wasn't really, say, Mandy, we need to show that separately. To show that we had about $1 million loss in the actual books as of a fiscal year, ended June 30th, 19. So if you look at the bottom, you show the net position ending without OPEB. That 6.8 million is our fund balance for the self-funded insurance at this point.
As of June.
As of June 30th.
So Lynn's report is going to bring us up to date, at least, because we made that adjustment in July, that we haven't had a full year to
But
benefit
remember,
from.
he's reporting to you a fiscal year.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm reporting to you.
Right. So,
In my reporting, isn't gonna capture, expenses in the department or anything like that. Mine's just claims, any reimbursements back to the plan and what we're funding into it from payroll deductions and board.
And his is a cash basis. The auditors go in and actually look at claims that happened after fiscal year that occurred during the fiscal year. So you may go to the doctor in June, but we may not get the bill until September to pay it. He's showing it in September.
Right.
We're showing it in June. So we're matching apples to apples in our statements. In that this is what happened this fiscal year, what was paid, what was claimed, including claims that were paid in September, but actually incurred in June.
so the contractual services are, in this report, are the same ones that Jennifer gave us earlier, correct?
That would be,
I'm not sure which one they gave you, so.
yeah, contractual services is Blue Cross.
It's Blue
Yeah.
Cross, it's the pharmacy,
Right.
if that's what she
Right.
gave you, then yes,
And
that would be that.
Claim payments, what are the other operating expenses, the $712,000?
all the operations of the actual department that has to run this insurance, that has to get the Blue Cross statements, that has to bill all the retirees, that has to bill the current employees,
Gotcha.
all the operating expenses of that department.
Thank you. Anyone have any questions? You finished, Matt?
Is there an accountant assigned to this fund?
Yes.
Who is that?
Heidi. And she's actually come to a couple of
I
things that
wasn't
we can
aware of
ask
that.
her to come.
That's
But Heidi's not expensive.
No, she's not.
But she's not charged in here.
No.
That
This
is
is-
a general fund
Well, that's not what I was
expense.
asking.
Yeah.
I was curious.
Yeah, she is the one, but
Just in case
her,
you didn't-
her salary's not included in this other operation.
Anyone have any questions about this? Okay,
I have
next
a
one.
question. The operating expenses, does that include salaries for people in the insurance department?
That's what we're talking about, the other operating.
The other operating would be
operating.
the director and a couple, it's not the accountant, but it is the director of that one and people who work just in that department.
Direct.
Correct. All right, next item on the agenda, EBI enrollment, which we thankfully have a written report.
I do. We met with EBI yesterday, just as a, you know, to close out how we did enrollment. It was actually a wonderful meeting. There's two different packets. One is a graph and charts, which you'll find very interesting, or I at least did. You'll see it's broken down into 4 categories, which our employees that make in our district, that make $25,000 or less, were our second most involved employees of purchasing
Interesting.
voluntary insurance. Which was, I had never seen that chart before after all the digging I've been doing, so I thought that was really interesting to see. So they break it down by gender, salary, things like that. So if you have any questions, please let me know and we can contact EBI and we can get those answers for you.
And Keith said that the transportation problem we had prior to enrollment was taken care of.
Yes, ma'am. Excellent, excellent job.
Yes. And we have already, so yeah, it's looking good. Anybody else? Sure.
And again, the sign-in sheet's going around to the rest of the committee. If someone hadn't signed it. Lynn, Mr. Fontaine, quarterly report on health claims.
All right. So everybody has a handout.
Does anybody not have one of these? Pat, you want?
All right, going to page 1, it'll be of course, this will be a full year of reporting. And I'm going to kind of set the table with a little history. If you remember, first 6 months of the year, doing very well. Third quarter, claims picked up, okay? Fourth quarter, you're going to see claims actually came down a little bit, but still much higher than where we were from the first half of the year. So if you look at it year over year, and we look at the participation, just a slight increase in participation. And I'll go over all of the demographics in detail with you, but we're looking at $32,457,000 of medical claim, prescription drugs right under $20 million at $19,634,000 for a total claims picture of $52,091,548. Plan reimbursements, and if you look down at the bottom, plan reimbursements come from any claimants that have exceeded our $500,000 reinsurance deductible. The majority of these reimbursements come from pharmacy program rebates, which have increased substantially, and any kind of subrogation payment or credits that we get back from Blue. Those plan reimbursements grew substantially, $5,280,000. Our retiree drug subsidy stayed about the same, actually a little bit less, and giving us a net paid claims figure of $45,659,000. Year before, $45,484,000. Total fixed cost, I can tell you we haven't had any really increase from Blue Cross. Our increase in fixed costs is going to be from reinsurance, okay? Reinsurance market's getting tougher each year. This past year for 2020, if you remember, we had a very favorable fixed cost renewal. We also had a decrease in the Humana premium, close to 30%. So I'm going to share those figures with you as we go. Our retiree premium from Humana, we had $887 in 18, and you see a decrease here to the $849, $987. For a total plan cost of $50,402,000 prior year, $49,906,000. When we measure this on a per employee per month basis, because that's how we look at the ebb and flow of the number of participants in the plan. Remember, participants are going to be employee or retiree. Members are going to be a human body. So membership is belly buttons, and participation is going to be retirees and employees. So year over year, we have a 0.3% increase, difference being about $500,000, $496,366. Now let's look at our funding. Our funding from 2018, $34,545,000. Funding this year, $5,309,000. Last year, we ended with about a $500,000 surplus, $456,000. This year, we actually finished the year in a deficit position of $587,998. Okay? Now, if you turn the page, I'll give you more in-depth statistics because this measures it on the per employee per month basis. Our participation increased 0.6%. Our medical claims increased on a gross basis, okay, 4.5%. Why? Claims between 20,000 and 200,000. It wasn't our large claims, those $500,000 claims and above. Obviously, we've got reinsurance protection on that. It's that range between 20 and 200,000. If you look at it, we had 285 members go between 20 and 200 this year versus the 262 in the year before in 2018. That difference being almost $1 million, $997,000. Predominantly cancer, heart, and musculoskeletal, orthopedic types of surgery. On the prescription drugs, we increased only 1%. Now, our utilization increased with our high-cost medications. We had a high-cost medication increase of 12.5%. That's not necessarily because of more utilization of those high-cost medications from the people that are on it. More people are getting prescribed these high-dollar medications. If you have Crohn's disease and you're taking lower-cost medications, and as that Crohn's disease progresses, you're going to go up the ladder to these higher-cost meds. And I sound like a tape recorder every time we meet, but it's grown each time we meet. When you look at TV, every night it's diabetes and anti-inflammatories advertised on TV, every commercial you look at.
It's true.
Okay? And the cost of those medications increasing. Been doing this for a long time. Never would I have ever thought that we'd be talking 6 figures a year or $500,000 a year, okay, for a prescription med. Reinsurance was originally designed to protect from preemie babies, end-stage renal disease, and transplants, not prescription drugs. But we do have drugs out there, that the costs are $50,000 a year or more, a month. Not a year, a month, okay? Many of the medications that you see advertised each night, the anti-inflammatories like the Enbrels, Humiras, Stellaras, Otezlas for plaque psoriasis, rheumatoid arthritis, and Crohn's disease range in cost from $10,000 to $20,000 or more $1,000 a month. So when we look at the high-cost meds, even though that went up 12.5%, the reason why we haven't seen a big increase in our prescription drugs is, remember, we've been continually renegotiating that contract, getting higher rebates, getting better discounts, all of that type of thing. So that's kept that flat. So a total plan cost increase at this particular time is year over year is 0.3%. What we're looking at more closely is first half of the year versus second half of the year, because the reason we're talking about 0.3% is because the first half of the year was very favorable. Really ramped up in the second half and continued through this third quarter. Now, at the same time, when we look at our funding, I'll take you to total funding on a per employee per month basis. In 2018, 738 per employee per month. This year, 725. So how do you have an increase in employees and a decrease in funding? Well, really, we don't necessarily have an increase in employees. Remember from prior meetings, our retiree population is growing faster, okay? And we fund more for retirees, so when we have that role increasing, funding is going to come down a bit. But also, when we look at the reporting, when we have migration to lower cost plans from enhanced to basic to Blue Saver, we take in less funding. Okay? So good news is that when I look all the way back to 2008, your average increase in cost in this plan is averaging about 2.5%.
It's
That's
amazing.
phenomenal.
That is incredible.
To be able to keep the costs that flat. Actually, we've had some good years in recent years, surplus, big surplus in the 17 year that obviously helps and things like that. Haven't had to make any changes in the plan. Haven't had to have increases in the cost of the employees or retirees. So we've done super well. But it's creeping up on us, and I'm watching it. Now, I'll tell you that of our top 30 claimants, 2/3 of them are cancer. In the reporting, you're going to see that it's going from inpatient to outpatient, and that means the tumors are removed. Now you're in chemo. Some of these things are coming to fruition. Some of them are ongoing, so we're keeping a tight watch on that. Cool. Taking you to page 3 and trying to concentrate on where we highlighted in yellow here. So we're talking about on a per employee per month basis, plan cost January through June, $646.83. Plan cost $820.31. Now, you always would think that the latter part of the year would be higher because people are going to have met their deductible. The plan's going to be paying more or met their out-of-pocket, okay? Also, you've got the summer months in there, okay? And those are always high, that type of thing. But it didn't taper off as much as we expected in those last couple of months, reason being the ongoing high-cost claims. So it's really keeping a close monitor on that. Page 4 is just the previous year. Actually, the first 6 months of 19 was superior to 18. So it really ramped up in the second half of this year. When we talked about demographics and all, and this is another area that we've talked about in every meeting, other school systems have had to address the fact that while the private sector around them is increasing premiums and decreasing benefits to their people, okay? You guys have held your benefits steady and haven't had premium increases, so remember, day by day, your plan becomes more and more and more attractive, okay? And so as this has happened in other districts, we would have a barrage or an influx of membership. Remember, membership's belly button, employees and retirees participation are enrollment, okay? So you wind up, or those entities wind up being the insurance carrier for the parish, or the insurance plan for the parish, relieving some of those private firms of the responsibility of covering that spouse. Why? Because you've got a better deal. So some of these other districts have addressed that by using spousal surcharges or increasing premiums on the dependent side to steer those folks away. Now, in the event that we would ever need a premium increase in the future, and I'm going to tell you one of these days we are, the cost of health care goes up, okay? you'd be better served to wait more on the dependent side than the employee side, okay? Always a better thing to do there. For the first time in a while, I'm actually seeing a little bit of a higher increase in participation on spouses than your own. You know, I told you enrollment went up 0.3%. Spousal enrollment went up 1%. Nothing staggering, okay, but I'm keeping a close eye on it.
So is
Because in other
is that just our parish, or is that just in
Well,
general?
in other districts, we were seeing that spouses were costing as much as 25 to 30% more from a claims perspective than their own active employees and retirees were, okay? Not happening here, but, you know, when we talk about demographic reporting, you don't think it's important. It can be super important, because if you start to see a big influx of membership into your plan, and spouses, the next thing you know, this report on the next couple of pages says that spouses are costing us 25% more than, now we've got, so something that we monitor, not a huge problem right now, but I'm starting to see a little uptick, and you would suspect that. I mean, we've had an oil and gas economy that's been suffering for, you know, I was in a meeting this morning with a big boat company, and you know, it's 5 years now that particular sector suffers. I mean, if you're working on shale, you're probably not suffering. But if you're working on something on the Gulf of Mexico, you've got some boats and things like that, those companies have probably laid off 40 to 45% of their employees, and they're struggling.
Okay, now, we also, at the same time, we had we proposed where, over the 10-year basis, if an employee brought a spouse in, we were gonna do the 10% per year, okay, where they were gonna pay in other words, we would only pay 10% if they just came in like this year, okay? And if they were here for 10 years, then we would be paying the regular 100% like we normally do. And it hadn't gone into, we passed that, but it hadn't gone into effect. No one took the ball, you know, and did that.
So, Mr. Bush, most of this, years and years ago, the mindset was, if you're gonna cover your spouse when you retire, you better put them in the plan
Right away, yes,
before you retire.
exactly. But as you said, and then also some companies, okay, if you're with the company, you have to get their insurance. And if your spouse was in another company, then they had to get their insurance through that company. That was the law, I mean, or the ruling as far as some of these companies go. But we'd seen that in those years. And what we came up with was a 10-year plan where if your spouse came in, we paid 10% per year, okay, up until the 100%. So in 10 years, they were fully vested in our system, but it didn't take off.
Well, yeah, the mindset to this now is many large employers that provide retiree coverage are really not forcing that employee to bring them in way ahead of time, because, folks, the time where the highest age bracket claim-wise you have in your plan is not 65 plus.
Right.
Okay? Because remember, Medicare is primary for the majority of those folks. It's 55 to 65 where most of things are diagnosed and treated, and then if the treatment goes well, then live a nice life after that.
Right.
Okay? So just keep that in mind, and that's just a close monitor. So right in line with this, if we know on page 5, we're talking about a 0.3% increase in enrollment, and then on page 6, we're talking about a 1% increase in membership. It's not staggering, but membership is outpacing slightly employees. All of this comes to a head on page 7, in that our spouses are costing us 5.7% more than our employees, okay? On a 3-year average, 2.5%. Is that something to be alarmed about? No, it's not a big difference. You had a couple of high-cost claimants that were spouses this particular year that spiked it up.
So
Okay?
that number doesn't concern
But
you.
if we start to see that enrollment increases 0.3% or a low number, and then we have double that or triple that in membership, we know that there's, something going on in the industry and that we're getting more folks, and there's several ways to combat that. Probably the best one is to increase premium on the dependent side if and when you have a premium increase down the road. There is something called a spousal surcharge, and there's also a SIRA program. Spousal surcharge is just changing the definition of eligibility under your plan. It says your spouse is eligible, but if she is also or he or she is also eligible for coverage where they work, waive that coverage because yours is better. Pay surcharge. Industry standard, $100 a month. Goes over like a lead balloon. Goes over like a lead balloon. I'm not the biggest proponent of it because this is what I've seen happen. Folks that when this first started, everybody wanted to put it in. Okay? But who does it really shove off your plan? Shoves off your healthy spouses. If you're really sick and you're on this plan because it's got the best benefits, $100 isn't going to move a high-cost claimant off your plan. Okay? So it can backfire on you as much as it can help. I think there's other solutions to address that. I'm telling you it's something we're monitoring. I'm also telling you it's not a severe problem to the case right now. From a medical claim standpoint, once again, that 4.5% increase, all about those claims between 220 and 200, difference being $997,000. Now remember, we are going to get some help from a few things. We made a slight change in benefits, and that change in benefits went in effect on July 1st. You're going to get the full year. You're not going to get a half a year's effect of that. You're going to get a full year's effect of that. Okay. I also can tell you that I've seen claims in recent weeks. But what you see in the beginning of the year, you have a deductible, out-of-pocket reset, all your benefits track on a calendar year. And you also have some of these large claimants who are going through their surgery, going through their chemotherapy, or for orthopedic surgery and heart surgery, okay? Those are outpatient procedures, the majority of them, and majority of them successful, and that doesn't repeat itself. So I'm seeing a downturn in some of those things, but in recent weeks, we're seeing claims coming back to that first 6 months of 19 type of range. Okay? Because the claims you're going to see in January are going to be reflected, just like Matt was talking about, there's a lag, about 6 to 8 week lag. So the claim, if a claim is incurred today, okay, it's going to be paid in the next 60 to 90 days. Prescription drug wise, 294 to 297, 1% increase. I can tell you the majority of the reason on that is that we don't have a increase is the contractual differences. Like I said in the beginning, we had a 12.5% increase in our high cost, but we were still able to remain stable. We increased rebates probably close to $2 million between 18 and 19.
Wow.
Okay. And effective on November 1st, when we renegotiated, remember I told you at the last meeting, we renegotiated and they were willing to put that contract in effect a month earlier in November. We're going to start to see that difference. That difference this year between discounts and rebates is priced in at $1,194,000, so that'll be coming to us as well. Total claims up at 3.1%. Net of reimbursements actually is slightly down. Okay, a decent amount to talk about on page 11 here. I'm going to kind of send two messages with this. You know, when we talk about a $500,000 difference in the, you know, if we're looking at a $50 million plan and we were 49,950, okay, last year, and we're 50 million this year, basically, we've got a $500,000 difference. We've got a $500,000 deficit. Last year, we came close to breaking even. We had a right under a $500,000 surplus. This year, a $500,000 deficit. And that swing, and partially because of decreased funding. And you see it right here, because if you look at your numbers on your enhanced in 2018 to 2019, hardly changed at all, okay? But you also had a pretty decent increase. We went from the 3678 down to the 3618 on your basic, so Saver went up a decent amount, okay? And in 19, Blue Saver reached almost 20% of the total population of your case. Look down here at the bottom on these three bullets. Blue Saver is 19.7% of your participation, only 10.5% of your claims. Blue Saver, you're making money on, okay? Enhanced, 14.7% of your participation, 20.6% of your claims, okay? So we lose money on folks that are participating in Enhanced. We're making money on folks that participate in Blue Saver. Okay? Now, I just got these statistics today for our 1/1/20 enrollment. Okay? We went back up 6% on Enhanced. Okay? We went down 1.2% on Basic. We went up almost 7% on Blue Saver. So what is that going to do to our funding? We could be getting more funding because we had some migration to Enhanced. That's good for the plan, okay? Not a big difference in benefits between Enhanced and Basic, but a huge difference between Basic and Blue Saver, okay? So the Blue Saver, all of that means is that we could fare out favorably from lower claims for the migration to Blue Saver. We can fare out favorably to the migration for the Enhanced, but there's another point to this. With a little bit of benefit changes we've made, and also with no premium increase for quite some time, you rarely see people migrating back to your highest choice, okay? So for example, if we have 811 people in the Enhanced plan in 2019, the enrollment for January was 859. That tells you that folks are comfortable in going back up the ladder. And I don't know, that what I'm trying to tell you, if we have to make some changes in the future, you guys know that if we're gonna make change, okay, the first thing I'm gonna do is show you the benefit option. I'm also gonna show you saving strategies that have nothing to do with benefits or premiums, like the prescription drug savings that we implemented that didn't have any disruption to anybody. Okay? Very small population might have to try a lower cost medication, or we got rid of a medication that cost $2,200 a month. It was a combination of ibuprofen and Pepsid that you can buy over the counter for $50. And it was $2,200 a month. Okay? So constantly watching things like that. But what I'm saying is that if in fact we do look at benefit changes, there's room for it because you rarely see people moving back towards the more expensive plan.
So you're gonna keep notice to see if that movement to the expensive plan will it offset the claims? That's what I'm.
My hope is that the movement to the expensive plan brings you more funding and not more claims. but that the 7% movement to the Blue Saver really lowers your claims costs.
But according to this right here, it's not telling me that. When I, present this to retirees, and I look where you have right here, that the enhanced plan has a 14% participation, but it represents 26% of the claims, but enhanced plan claims per employees is 33% higher. So when I'm gonna tell them that, the question they're gonna ask me, are they paying enough money? That's the question they're gonna ask me. So I need to ask you that, because how do I answer that? Are we paying for them?
It's called group insurance, okay? And so that's why you have choices to meet three different needs. But what I'm alluding to here is that in that Blue Saver is supporting these other two plans, okay? That's what the essence of it all is. If we don't have an overall change of more than 0.3%, obviously Blue Saver is supporting because the enhanced isn't paying for itself.
Yeah, that's my point. If it's not paying for
If
itself.
we were ever to have
Yeah.
a time, and once again, we will. Okay, if we have to address premiums, just like we said before, it's probably in our best interest to weight it more on the dependent side. It's probably in our best interest to weight it more on the enhanced plan than we would, for example,
I
on Blue
answer
Saver.
that. Okay.
That's the answer you use.
Yeah, that's the answer I need.
The people that are paying the Blue Saver rate are subsidizing the people.
Yeah.
You can tell it's
So
significant.
Blue Saver is now up to 21%, basic at 63.9, and the rest in enhanced. Total plan cost, we've kind of reviewed this at the 0.3% and the 2.8 average since 2012. It's actually 2.5, I think, going back to 2008. This next one, by claims by type of service on 13, if you look at it, inpatient actually went down. These numbers in the parentheses at 142 PEPM in inpatient for 2018, down to 131. It's about an 8% decrease. So what went up? What went up is outpatient. That's where the majority of your orthopedic surgery is. It's the majority of your circulatory surgery. But more importantly, it shows you, and you'll see it in the next couple of pages, where we've gone from neoplasm being top and inpatient, and then kind of coming down, and now you see it matriculating into the chemotherapy on the outpatient basis. So top diagnosis inpatient, look at 2018 at $1,233,715 or $19 per employee per month, down to 701,573 or 11, okay? Tumors taken out in 18, chemotherapy in 19. No respiratory, but also you'll see that you had some prenatal period conditions, so you had a few complicated pregnancies. So what's on the rise this year on the inpatient basis is injury and poisoning. It's always injury, okay? Very rarely poisoning, and that's not an ongoing diagnostic situation. The neoplasm down, pregnancy and childbirth up, genitourinary up. That's going to include some diabetes there, and then the complicated pregnancies. Now, when we look at it on an outpatient basis, heart number one, okay? But this factors influencing health, if you look at, and so the reason why I put the definition at the bottom is so you can see that chemotherapy is included there. That's where your chemo's coming in. So once again, heart, cancer, musculoskeletal. And where is that taking place? You can see that Lafayette General Medical Center went from 6 million to 7 million, almost 7 million full. Our Lady of Lourdes came up a bit as well. The majority of it going to Lafayette General, that's where your deepest discounts are. Prescription drug utilization, folks, I'll tell you this, 87% generic on a school system is really good. Okay? Remember that when you do have retirees in your coverage and all, and things like that, a lot of times that's a lot more brand name medication. Okay, 87% is just very, very good adherence to your plan rules. So that's an awesome thing for your plan there. And when you turn the page, it's going to make it. So 87% of your prescriptions only represent 16% of the cost. Pretty drastic difference between brand and generic. We've actually had a little bit of a downturn in overall drug utilization. 3 scripts a month per employee per month, down to 2.6. On page 20, these are all of your top medications by number of prescriptions. And when we talk about, it used to have conversation about hydrocodone and things like that. Hydrocodone didn't even make the top 10 anymore than it used to be in the top 5. It's going to be more of your diabetes or cholesterol, blood pressure medications. So let's talk about where the real money is on the prescription drugs here. On page 21, this is 1.9% of your prescriptions and 27.3% of the money. So less than 2% of your prescriptions is driving almost 30% of your total prescription drug claim costs. Okay? Top one, Golf Pro. The next one is a medication that there were certain, you've heard of Coumadin for strokes, years and years of folks on Coumadin, a blood thinner to keep them from having a stroke if they were throwing plaque off of an artery or anything like that. Eliquis is a new medication that's been around for a couple of years on that. You have also the Xarelto. Both of those are stroke medications, but the first one is going to be an anti-inflammatory. Then you see some diabetic medication in there, but your Revlimid and the Proteglio right under that, cancer medications, also the Imbrex cancer medications.
Were any of these coming off of the generic or coming off of,
You're not going to see a Humira, Stelara, Cosentyx, or anything like that. Even if they were to go generic, okay, you don't have a number of low-cost alternatives. If it goes generic, it's not going to drop in price from a supply and demand standpoint. That's the problem with these specialty medications. They're ramping up in utilization, but they're all in the same cost category. We even have some private sector employers starting to use things like a Canada RX, where you can get some of these medications mail ordered from Great Britain or another country, about 35-40% less. There's a number of opportunities to, but there's also a lot of things going on in Washington. This is a huge topic. At the same time, you've got a lot of lobbying power with the pharmaceutical industry, so we're watching all of that. Going back to that report where we saw most of our inpatient business and outpatient as well at Lafayette General. And I don't work for them, but I can tell you, you're going to be hard pressed to find a network that has as much choice as as the Blue Cross network gives to your folks and gives you a 70% discount. Okay, that's the highest, and Lafayette's a really good area for that. You're getting, if I look at my systems in other parishes, really good discounts because you've got good competition there.
Yeah.
So you're welcome. Also, when we talk about things to bring in some saving strategies, you know there are narrower networks. You're dealing with the Blue Cross network that has the widest choice of hospitals and doctors. There are narrower versions of that network that you could use as a plan choice that might be well for that employee. You could have a plan member that all of the doctors and people that are treating them are here in Louisiana, and maybe a Louisiana-only network choice could bode well for the plan. Just another saving strategy that we're going to look at there. And when that network's giving you 70% discounts, and you have that little percentage on page 23 going out of network, 98, 97% of your people staying in network, the network is running very well for you. Page 24 breaks down the cost of the plan from claims versus our fixed cost of the plan. So a lot of times you'll hear folks say, well, why are we still self-funded? Okay, it's a $50 million plan, and we want to make sure that our costs are, we know what our costs are going to be. Let's take a look at a fully insured plan. Well, a fully insured plan would probably, if we quoted it, would probably be over $60 million to begin with on your coverage. But at the same time, in a fully insured plan, there's in some cases, over 20 cents on a dollar bill of plan costs that goes to the fixed cost of the plan. You're running your plan for a lower cost than Medicaid, Medicare, or a fully insured plan. You're running your plan for basically 7 to 8%. 8 cents on a dollar is the hard cost of running your plan. 93 cents dedicated to claims. And that's where we're going to pay a dollar bill of costs out of here. We want to pay a medical claim and not an admin fee or reinsurance fee.
Is there an option to allow somebody a plan where they limit their network? So their cost is that an
That's
option?
what I was just talking about.
Yeah, but is
Right
there a
now,
way to do that
all
where?
three plans
Yeah.
use the preferred care network, Blue Cross, which gives them
Which
the
is
widest
expensive, but
choice.
within the options are given, could you give an option where they have decided to purchase this less expensive, program, but it limits the doctors they can do, is that it? But
There's something
still
we
allow
look at,
another,
we'll continue to look at. We just have to make sure that if you do that kind of plan option, that the difference in discount is big enough. So if, for example, if we're going to use Blue Cross's point of service plan, which limits to providers, on a fully insured basis, Blue's probably going to give you a lower premium for that. Okay? But we've got to make sure that it reduces our claims cost and that there's enough of a contractual difference in those two networks at a Lourdes or a Lafayette General. But it would be one of the saving strategies that we would definitely put on the table to consider. It's probably a better consideration in some cases than considering a change in benefits, like raising a deductible.
but can we do that for a
something like
portion of the, or that would have to be for everybody would have to agree to a limited plan?
No, you could use
Do a portion.
it. So let's say you have your enhanced plan, your basic plan, and your Blue Saver. You might have a fourth choice.
Yeah, that's what, okay.
As an example
Yeah,
for a narrower network plan.
perfect, thank you.
And from a contribution standpoint, because on those first couple of pages that we saw our funding go down, plan cost net of employee contributions increased 1.4%. Remember, the plan reduced, was up that 0.3%, difference being we had lower funding. And you'll see on page 26 that 411,000 in the 20,000 to 50,000 category, 50,000 to 200, 586. That's where our major increased cost was this year, and those claimants, and that totals that 997,000. So to kind of give you a recap here, great first 6 months. Third quarter was way up there with these cancer claims. We're going through the continuum of that treatment. Some ongoing, many coming to fruition. We've got the lower cost on your Medicare Advantage. We've got the increased savings on the prescription drugs. Obviously, it's budget time and all of that, but we're putting a close monitor on the plan. And in that, I think we probably would be well served. I would recommend that we probably reconvene in March. So that we can take a look at how February fares out to see if we start to need to put some cost strategies on the table. I'd rather take the Boy Scout approach and be proactive rather than reactive.
Yeah, we agreed,
Yes.
those of you who knew, that
So,
our priority,
there's
wait a second, our priority was to make certain that we never got into a crisis management situation again. Years ago, that's how it operated. I mean, we waited and waited and waited, and then everybody's premiums went up, and you can't budget that quickly. So we've always taken the approach since Lynn got here, that he's gonna watch everything, and when he has a concern, like he did last year, apparently what we did in July was the right thing to do, because we ended up with a $500,000 deficit. So I'm glad we did that when we did that. So when in March do you want to meet? The latter part of March?
There's Tuesday the 10th. Would that be an okay date?
Good.
Is that good for everybody? Tuesday, March 10th?
That'll give me,
And you will make a recommendation as to whether we need any increase or,
I can't tell you right now whether I'm gonna make a recommendation on anything, but I'm gonna be prepared for whatever
Okay.
recommendation we're gonna be making, and probably we're gonna be looking at if claims. I'm gonna give you a good picture and one that would need to address some things. So if we have very favorable data and we start to build a surplus, okay, we always have to have saving strategies ready, and we should be talking about saving strategies all of the time.
absolutely.
Okay, so that March meeting, we'll probably be talking about saving strategies, and those saving strategies would be benefit changes, pharmacy programs, network programs, things like this, to reduce the need to change premiums, folks.
Do you have another date in March? 'Cause
But you know what?
Carol can't be
Listen,
Well,
I won't,
we have
but
a
I'll
board
do my
meeting on
best.
the
Yeah, I'll do
11th.
my best. Nancy.
That
I'm gonna be
I'd
faithful
like
to
to
them.
meet with
I'll
you
try.
guys before we
Okay. And I know-
so the other scenario is if we have more diagnosis of cancer and we see a high quarter,
Right.
I'd rather be
Yes.
meeting with you on the 10th
Right.
of March,
Yes,
because I
yes.
need to get in front of the
Yes.
board so they can act on something if they need to.
And for those of you who don't know, Butch had to leave, but he's gonna have surgery. He was our long-term chairman, he's having back surgery. Yes,
You
ma'am?
asked Lynn to look at it, as he said he would, and then when we come back in March, if he sees a need or recommends to have different scenarios for you guys to consider.
That's great.
Yeah.
I would like to say compliment Lynn, because
Oh,
before this, those of you that are on the
Oh,
committee know,
yes.
the only
Before
time we
Lynn?
met is when there was a crisis and there were no choices, it was last minute. It is really nice to have somebody report quarterly and somebody keeping an eye on the plan to adjust accordingly, and we do appreciate that.
You
Thank
really
you.
And I don't think there's anybody in the private sector that can have can boast the level of generic drugs that this plan has with the number of people we have, and also that can have a 3% increase, a 0.3% increase, excuse me. That's pretty amazing in this day and age.
There's a lot of luck involved.
Well, and a lot of work, so we do appreciate it. Those of us who were here and know what it was like when we did not have you, we're very grateful.
So, most appreciated, and I thank y'all for hiring. One of the other things that we're going to look at with this is because the first question that's going to come out of your mouth, if I say, okay, here's this option and this option and this option, what's everybody else doing?
Yeah.
So next meeting really starts out before we even look at, we're going to look at where we are from a claims perspective, but next meeting will be benchmarking, because you need to know where you are with your peers as far as what's their benefits look like now. What changes do they make January 1st or last, because we've looked at that before, but don't think that information's the same.
Right.
Okay? Not all plans run the same and all of that sort of thing, so we'll get all of the benchmarking updated, so you're going to see that we have a really good deal going on here from a premium perspective, from a benefit perspective, and you're better than the average bear. The average bear, the benchmark, the real big benchmark is office and your benefits.
Right.
Thank you, Lynn, very
I
much.
appreciate it.
Next item on the agenda, wellness testing. Ms. Jennifer?
Yes, the wellness testing for retirees will be at the Vermillion Conference Center in the large conference room, and we have the 2 dates, April 7th and April 22nd, and the department will send out postcards, contact the Facebook page, and all of that. But I wanted to go ahead and add it to the agenda so everybody knew where it was.
Thank you very much. Any old business? New business, we need to elect officers for this year, who's coming in, the year we're already in.
Nominate Nancy Mouse for president.
Second. All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
What were those dates for the wellness? I didn't get that. I'm sorry.
April 7th from 7 a.m. to 12 p.m. and Wednesday, April 22nd from 7 a.m. to 12 p.m. and it'll be at Vermillion Conference Center.
And we also need a co-chairman, so if somebody wants to nominate Ms. Landry again.
I'll nominate Keith.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those opposed?
How about in favor?
I mean, all those in favor?
Let's go with protocol, okay? Yeah.
Any comments? I did say Butch is having surgery. One of our members is retiring, but I have asked her, since the secretariat group no longer meets as they used to, after she has her sinus surgery, I've asked her to still come and pass the word along to a couple of the active secretaries that can get the word out if she doesn't mind, because she's got a wealth of knowledge. Any other comments? Then we'll adjourn, and I'll see everybody March 10th. And thank you so much for your time. I know it's
Miss Nancy, I just want to report also that if you are on Blue Cross Blue Shield and you put in for the $250 credit, it has been applied to your account. So I just wanted to let you know that also.
Thank you very much. You become an insurance pro, but that's
We'll see about that.
you'll have another job.
Sorry, boss.
I'll call you. Just,